Hi, Robert Chuckrow here. In this video, I'm going to talk about sword handling. And of course, the first question that comes up is, why are sword forms in Taiji important when the sword is an outmoded weapon? You can't walk down the street with a sword for self-defense. So the answer to that question is that the purpose of the sword is not to learn to fight with it or defend yourself with it. The purpose of the sword is to learn natural movement. So how is that possible? Well, the sword, the model swords we use when we do Taiji, we don't use live ones, is inanimate, meaning it doesn't have the hang-ups that we have. The problems of doing natural movement that we have acquired from going to school and having to sit for long periods of time at desks to learn to be able to do that at an assembly line or at a job and do repetitive tasks and not have to think about our bodies at all. The clothing we wear, the societal norms. The sword doesn't have that. It just follows the laws of nature. It follows the laws of physics, which are the ways that nature of moving things is described. And as a result, we can learn natural movement from doing the sword. But we have to know how to handle it in a way that allows us to get that information and get that recognition. So let me ask you another question, or a question. Here is a pen. Let me adjust my camera so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's a pen. And how do I hold it? Like this? And I write like this and move my whole arm instead of just having a natural hand and just putting the pen in the hand and using the tips of my fingers to move the pen. Do I do that? Yes, this is the way. This is the way to get learning disabilities because you can't process very much when you're using all that energy to move that hand. Chopsticks. Here are a pair of chopsticks. Do I hold them like this? If I did, I'd starve to death if I were using them for food all the time. No, here's a natural hand. Here's a natural hand. And I put the chopsticks in my hand. And this is how I hold the chopsticks. I don't hold them any other way. And then I have freedom of mobility. Little children can do this. Now here is, I can't use a sword because it's too close to the camera. So I'll use this model knife, wooden knife, where I've masked off the dull edge of it so you can see when it turns. So here I have this knife and I hold it this way. Watch what happens when I do a cut in one direction and then change. See, watch my elbow and my wrist. That's very awkward to do. Very hard to do. I'm twisting my forearm a lot, using a lot of muscle to do that. And I have to lift this arm and lower it. Now watch. Here's a natural hand. I put the knife in the hand, and now watch. Notice what would be the sharp edge is the cutting edge. So what's happening here? This is another case of dòng, move and swing. What I'm doing is allowing the natural motion of the knife in my hand. So as I turn to the left, as I move it to the left, it has momentum. When I stop and start to go in the other direction, that momentum carries through. Well, the bottom part of this there's a certain amount of friction with my hand. So the only thing it can do to keep moving that way is have the top part of it do that as I move the other direction. Now it's resting on the heel of my hand and the tips of my forefinger and middle finger. And now I move the other way. Now it's resting on my thumb and forefinger. See? That's natural movement. And the changeover, it's like a figure eight or an infinity sign, horizontal figure eight, is very smooth. See? And it's very easy, and my elbow doesn't have to rise, my hand barely moves. If you look at the top of my finger when I do this, it's hard to do it that way. The top of the forefinger, the first knuckle, is barely moving. So that is the way you hold the sword, and I'll show you some sword movement next. Now what I'm going to do is those same movements that I did with the not the model knife, I'll do with the sword. At the start, let me just say I like the sword to balance close to the hilt, at the very end of the blade, or close to the end of the blade. See, out here, that's the balance point there. And when you have it that way, it floats. So if I do this movement this way, it's the part of it that's the hardest to do, which is a smooth transition, is very hard, much harder, because I have to use my arm this way instead of letting it have its natural movement. The natural movement occurs when it's going this direction. I have it propped on my forefinger and the handle held down with my thumb. And now it's on the third and fourth, maybe my fifth finger a little bit, and the outside palm heel, the heel of my hand, holding it, balancing it. So it's this. And it's a very comfortable way of doing it. Now here's another movement, and that is a sagittal cut. So if I do this cut, and watch what happens here. If I don't turn my body a huge amount, look at my arm. I can't move my arm any more than that. It's almost locked. And now I have to come up and do this and come over again, like that. So if I try to do that fast, it looks like this, very awkward. Instead, I hold it lightly between my thumb and forefinger and watch. Do it slowly, see? Holding it this way, and then let it do that. So doing it faster, watch. I hardly have to move my hips at all. I can, but I don't need to. That's the beauty of this. It's a natural movement. And here again, when it reaches the lowest point, I'm already turning back. That's the dong. The other is the rotation of the sword in my hand about its axis. What I did when I discovered this way of moving, I shouldn't say I discovered it, I was taught it, is to apply it to all the moves of the sword form. And every move has a little different way of doing this. So this is something I think you'll find of value. Thank you.